I want to bring into the conversation the First Lady's man, our friend Andrew Och, to talk more about this. He joins me. Andrew, thanks for being with us here. You and I have talked about the Carter family over the last few years here, and now this sad note that Jimmy Carter passed away there today in Plains at the age of 100. We had you on as well when Rosalynn passed away in November of 2023. We've been talking about their lives and their legacies, and they were devout adherents of the Baptist faith. And I just have to note that today is a Sunday, and Rosalynn passed away on a Sunday too. I thought that was fitting.
It is, and it's very fitting for a couple that did spend their entire lives together. I've studied every First Lady, Martha Washington through Dr. Jill Biden, and now a second term of Melania Trump coming up. And the Carters are different than nearly every other presidential couple in history in that it's nearly impossible to talk about President Jimmy Carter's life without talking about Rosalynn Carter's life. They met upon birth. Jimmy's mother, Miss Lillian, was there at Rosalynn's birth. She was there when Mrs. Carter's father, Edgar, died. Mrs. Carter, Rosalynn Carter, played with Jimmy Carter's sisters throughout school. I've been to Plains. I know both sides of the family very well. They still celebrate holidays and festivals and special events together. There's just not one without the other. And it is an American love story that traveled all the way to and through the White House and beyond.
So, Andrew, obviously every seemingly perfect love story has its ups and downs here. I want to note this because I think it's interesting. Carlos Lozada there at the New York Times, he writes for the opinion page, says one of his favorite details from Jimmy Carter's various memoirs is his description of the quote-unquote worst threat he and Rosalynn ever experienced to their marriage, and it was the time they tried to write a book together. What do you make of that?
Well, Mrs. Carter said there in Jonathan Seri's piece, the key was giving each other space, but also doing things together. And when you do so many things together and you have a life that lends itself to being able to do all these things together, sometimes, you try and do too much together. And they're both very, very strong-willed. They're both excellent writers. And when you get two writers trying to write the same book in their own way, probably best that they do take one of those separations and then, as President Carter said, kiss and make up before they go to bed so everyone goes to bed happy. But it truly was a remarkable life. And President Carter, keep in mind, President Carter has been in hospice for well over a year now. And when Mrs. Carter, people thought that President Carter would probably pass before Mrs. Carter, but he devoted himself to take care of his wife, this woman that he'd spent his entire life with, his love, to see her through her life. And when she had dementia, I know this from speaking to the family, it became even more important for President Carter to see her through to the other side because of the nature of her disease. He didn't want her to be confused. He didn't want her to be surrounded by unfamiliar faces. He needed to be there to guide her through to passing, and then he could relax and pass himself. And if anyone deserves to rest in peace, it's the two of these individuals who just spent their entire lives doing things for others.
Yeah, that's what you heard in the wake of Rosalynn Carter's passing. You heard a lot from especially Jason Carter, the Carter grandson, about the fact that, people would ask him, how is his grandfather doing? And he would essentially say it's, any day now, and, he's at peace with this, and he knows it's coming, and he wants to go be with Rosalynn again. That was always kind of where it came back to, that this was a point in his life, a long, long void with Rosalynn not there, and he just wanted to get to her again. So we didn't really see him much. We saw him, yes, at Rosalynn Carter's funeral. We saw him, I believe, in the back of a black SUV during the Plains Peanuts Festival earlier this year, and he waved. And then we learned that he cast his early ballot for Kamala Harris in the election before Election Day. So those appearances were very few and far between since 2023.
Well, and we also saw him at his 100th birthday.
Yeah.
They took him out there in the backyard, and he's surrounded by these family and friends. the park rangers that are down there have been there forever. Amy's school teachers from Plains are still down there. A friend of mine from Plains, Jan Williams, and her husband are still there, still going to the church, still visiting with the family, still doing the Butterfly Days festivals that celebrate Mrs. Carter on her birthday, celebrating Mr. Carter's 100th birthday. But you look at any of these events where they've been to, including, of course, his wife, Mrs. Carter's funeral, surrounded by friends and family. I can't stress how much it is real in Plains. This is
Yeah.
a wonderful, wonderful family with an incredible community, and it really has to be seen to believe, to be believed. I encourage everyone to go visit Plains, have a scoop of peanut butter ice cream in honor of President and Mrs. Carter, and just enjoy your time walking around a beautiful, lovely town with wonderful people in America.
Yeah, we're going to be seeing a lot of scenes out of Plains over the next couple of days here. But to your point, the Carter family was a large family. There's a lot of grandchildren and great grandchildren here. To your point, though, I want to read this final paragraph of Barack and Michelle Obama's statement today. They say Maranatha Baptist Church will be a little quieter on Sundays, but President Carter will never be far away, buried alongside Rosalynn next to a willow tree down the road. His memory calling all of us to heed our better angels, rather. When you talk about their partnership in the White House, though, Rosalynn Carter didn't just inhabit the ceremonial role that a first lady allows for. She was an advisor, too, right?
Absolutely. And this goes right to their partnership as well. And this is actually, one of the things that Mrs. Carter is celebrated for. And not all first ladies have been celebrated for doing this, but she went to cabinet meetings. She went to staff meetings. She took notes. She advised President Carter on things of policy and procedure, and thought things that she thought should be done about a whole wide variety. I mean, any business that came across his desk would come across her desk as well. And he asked her opinion and she gave it. And the two were so tightly joined in physically and mentally and in philosophy, but they were not afraid to disagree with each other, which I think is a very important thing to take note here. And when you go back to the book that they were writing together, it wasn't the greatest experience because there were things that they disagreed on, but that's kind of what you need in an advisor, or you need that other point of view of someone to say, well, you know what, maybe I wasn't in the right space on that, or maybe I wasn't thinking the right way. So I think they complemented each other in that way, personally, professionally, and politically.
Yeah, it's so interesting to kind of see them as this political power couple when on the surface, appearances would tell you they were modest and they were humble and they were faith-loving, servants. And so I think that dichotomy is really, really interesting. Andrew Och, final thoughts before we let you go.
Well, I think I just want to get back to the point of what President Biden was saying: decency.
Yeah.
What you see is what you get with the Carters. They really were and are, and their legacy continues to be a decent legacy of helping others and making the world a better place. And it was true for President Carter as much as it was true for Mrs. Carter.
All right, Andrew Och, thanks so much for recounting some of these stories and memories, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you.